Hey there, this is Alexis Knight. Welcome to True Crime, the Court of Public Opinion. I'm your host, guiding you through cases that have moved through the courts and reached a conclusion, but have left the public divided. These are not your typical cut and dried cases, guys. These are the ones where the facts might be clear, but the truth, well, that's another story. Now imagine this. You are scrolling through social media, engaging in what seems like a harmless exchange with someone you have never met. This happens every day. You post a comment, perhaps sharing your opinion on a hot topic, and before you know it, the conversation spirals out of control. What starts as a simple disagreement escalates into a public feud, playing out for everyone to see. And this is exactly what happened between Janelle Porter and a couple, Billie Jean Hayworth and Billie Payne. What began as a digital spat quickly turned into something more sinister. As emotions ran high and lines were crossed, Billie Jean and Billie Payne became central figures in this unfolding drama, but ultimately, their lives would be cut tragically short. After their online disputes, the couple was found shot dead in their home, igniting a firestorm of controversy and speculation around the circumstances of their deaths. Was Janelle Porter involved in their murders, or was she merely a scapegoat in a much darker narrative? This case raises critical questions about the consequences of online behavior and the potential for real-world violence stemming from digital conflicts. Join me as we delve into the details of this horrifying story, examining the motivations behind the feud, the aftermath of the tragic killings, and the question on everyone's mind: how did a social media dispute escalate into such violence? Stick with me here as we unpack the layers of this chilling case, exploring the complexities surrounding justice, accountability, and the blurred lines of modern interactions. In the wake of the tragic deaths of Billie Jean Hayworth and Billie Payne, many questions arise, particularly regarding the events leading up to that fateful night in 2016 in Oklahoma. What drove Janelle Porter to engage in such a heated online feud with this couple? This digital confrontation, which initially seemed trivial, spiraled into a dangerous conflict that ultimately led to devastating consequences. The timeline of events begins months before the murders, when social media became a battleground for personal grievances. What started as an innocuous exchange turned into a public spectacle, with each party taking to their profiles to air grievances, making accusations, and unleashing a torrent of insults. Janelle's motivations for engaging in this feud remain murky. Was she simply defending her honor, or were deeper personal issues at play? Social media, while providing a platform for self-expression, can also amplify emotions and distort perceptions, causing individuals to react impulsively. And many of us are on social media, and we see this play out in different exchanges every single day. And a lot of times we just want to get away from it, hoping it doesn't go too far, don't want to be involved. Well, as these online exchanges grew more hostile, both sides here became entrenched in their positions, leading to a tit-for-tat that felt almost inevitable. Friends and family observed the escalation, yet few intervened. And this raises another crucial question. Why do we often stand by and watch these conflicts unfold online without attempting to mediate or diffuse the situation? The dynamics of social media, it can create an environment where public opinion becomes the driving force behind individual actions, often overshadowing any rational thought. Was Janelle's involvement in the feud purely reactive, or did it stem from something more profound? Her life circumstances, the state of her mental health, and her relationships may have contributed to her engagement in this toxic exchange. In the fast-paced world of social media, one can become easily swept away by the tide of public sentiment, leading to choices that can have irreversible consequences. The tragic conclusion of this saga came when Billie Jean and Billie Payne were found shot dead in their home. And this ignited a firestorm of controversy and speculation around the circumstances surrounding their deaths. Public interest surged, not only in the shocking nature of the crime, but also in the lead-up to the tragedy. Many began to wonder, did Janelle Porter play a role in the deaths of this couple? Or was she merely a scapegoat in a much darker narrative? As investigations unfolded, the police had to sift through social media posts, looking for clues and trying to piece together the puzzle of this horrifying situation. This case is a reminder of the potential real-world ramifications of our digital interactions. In a society that increasingly relies on social media for communication, the implications of online disputes can quickly escalate into violent outcomes. At what point does an argument transition from the virtual realm into physical confrontation? The digital age has created a unique landscape where relationships can be built and destroyed with a click, where words can provoke, and where consequences are often felt far beyond the screen. Moreover, this case compels us to reflect on the nature of accountability in our interconnected world. As individuals, how do we navigate our interactions in a way that fosters understanding rather than conflict? When online feuds become the norm, what does that say about our society? Are we willing to take responsibility for our words and actions, particularly when they can lead to harmful consequences? The public's perception of Janelle Porter has been polarized. Some view her as a potential perpetrator, while others see her as a victim of circumstance. Caught in a situation spiraled beyond her control. As we delve deeper into the facts surrounding this case, it becomes essential to question not just the actions of the individuals involved, but also the societal structures that allow these kinds of conflicts to escalate and completely unchecked. As we move through this story, it's vital to consider the motivations behind the actions of each party involved. Were Billie and Billie merely caught in the crossfire of a bitter feud? Or were their lives marked by choices that led to this tragic end? The complexity of human relationships, particularly those played out on a public stage, it complicates our understanding of accountability and justice. By the end of this episode, I'm going to pose the compelling question, was justice truly served in this case? Or do the shadows of doubt linger over the outcome, as it happens so many times? We're going to look into the details and the narratives that surround this chilling tale, and I invite you to keep an open mind and reflect on the broader implications of online interactions and the very, very real consequences they can carry. This case of Billie Jean Hayworth and Billie Payne, it's steeped in controversy, not only due to the tragic nature of their deaths, but also because of the complicated events leading up to that fateful night. As we examine this case, it becomes important to understand the factors that did contribute to the ongoing debate surrounding all of this. One of the central controversies is the role of social media in the unfolding of events. What started as a seemingly minor disagreement between Janelle and this couple escalated into a very public feud. And it raises questions about accountability in online interactions. In a digital landscape where words can quickly incite emotions, how much responsibility does one bear for the words they choose to engage with publicly? The ability to hide behind a screen, it often leads to a disconnection from the consequences of one's actions. It lessens the impact of what they are doing. It allows for more because you're not as nervous to do it or say it. And furthermore, the sensational nature of the crime itself in this case captivated both the media and the public. The shocking murders attracted widespread attention, igniting a frenzy of speculation and gossip. The media's portrayal of the events played a critical role in shaping the public perception. Headlines, they were emphasizing the dramatic elements of the story, of course, and that sometimes overshadowed the complexity of the actual circumstances. And as new details emerged, public opinion shifted with every little piece of information. And this right here reflects the often fickle nature of societal judgments based on incomplete narratives. How can we fully stand in a view saying, I believe in this and I think this, if we haven't even looked into what actually happened? We hear a few words from friends or maybe the news or from anything, and we only need to hear that one little bit before we form an opinion. But is that fair to the case? Another point of contention lies in the investigation's complexity and the implications that it had for Janelle Porter. Authorities faced the daunting task of trying to piece together the events that led up to these murders, while navigating a landscape filled with conflicting narratives. The speculation about Porter's involvement raised questions about guilt and accountability. Did her online actions contribute to the couple's deaths? Or was she simply another figure caught in a tragic story? The legal proceedings surrounding this case became a battleground for public opinion, as many debated whether justice had been truly served. Moreover, the aftermath of the case highlighted broader issues in society, particularly those concerning online harassment and the very real consequences that can arise from digital disputes. Many might view social media as an innocent platform for expression. Yet the reality is that words can have profound effects on individuals and communities as a whole. And this case serves as a reminder of those dangers, of unchecked online conflicts, where heated exchanges can absolutely escalate into violent outcomes. As we get deeper into this case, it's vital to consider the implications it holds for our understanding of justice and societal norms. The interplay between social media dynamics and violent outcomes compels us to reflect on how we communicate in a digital age. This controversy is not merely about a tragic event. It's about grappling with the lessons it presents for society as a whole. In essence, the controversies surrounding the murders of Billie and Billie, they underscore the power of words and the far-reaching consequences that can unfold from digital disputes. We think we write it down and send it off, and there it goes, and we don't need to think about it, and it's just words. But it's not just words. As we prepare to explore the details of the events that transpired here, remain mindful of the broader questions in this case about accountability, societal responsibility, and the evolving nature of justice in our interconnected world. What is it? What does it look like? With these complexities in mind, we're now going to transition to a detailed examination of the facts surrounding this case and get a clearer picture of how the situation developed and ultimately led to the tragic outcome that continues to resonate with those who follow this story. Okay, to understand the tragic deaths of Billie and Billie, we must delve into the factual timeline of events that culminated on that fateful night. So the story begins in a relatively quiet town in Oklahoma, where Billie Jean and Billie Payne were known to their community. They were described as a loving couple. They were engaged in their lives. They shared a home and a social circle that included friends and family who could attest to their caring nature. The seeds of conflict began to sprout online, where social media allowed for the quick exchange of opinions and ideas. Now, Janelle Porter, who was an acquaintance of this couple, became embroiled in a heated online dispute with Billie Jean and Billie. The nature of their arguments revolved around personal disagreements that were amplified in the public sphere, and it drew in others who started contributing and helping to escalate the hostility around all of this. So what started out as a disagreement, that's all it was, it quickly turned into a full-fledged feud, with accusations flying and public insults exchanged. And as the feud progressed, the tensions between the parties grew. Friends of both sides witnessed the exchanges online and noted how the atmosphere shifted from some playful banter to something far more sinister. The digital discourse turned darker, with threats and aggressive language becoming more commonplace. This change in tone would have significant implications, not only for the individuals involved, but for the community at large. The turning point in this whole saga occurred in June of 2016, when Billie and Billie were found dead in their home, and the discovery sent shockwaves through the community. It ignited intense media coverage and public interest. Initial reports indicated that both had died from gunshot wounds, raising immediate questions about the circumstances surrounding their deaths. How had a feud that began in the digital realm escalate to such a violent conclusion? The investigation that followed was thorough. It was multifaceted. Law enforcement officials quickly focused their attention on Janelle, given her involvement in the online disputes with the couple. As detectives began putting together the events that led up to the murders, they discovered that the online conflict had spiraled into real-life confrontations. Witnesses reported seeing Porter in the vicinity of the couple's home around the time of the murders, which further complicated the narrative. Facts began to reveal a troubling picture. Police found evidence of prior threats made by Janelle on social media, threats that suggested that the conflict had not only persisted online, but had also bled into the real world. And as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered messages that indicated a level of animosity that went beyond mere disagreement. And the question became whether Janelle's anger had led her to take drastic and violent action. Throughout the investigation, Janelle, though, maintained her innocence, asserting she had no involvement in the couple's deaths, and painted herself as a victim of circumstance. She was caught in a narrative that had spiraled out of control. This stance elicited mixed reactions from the public. Some wanted to believe her and did, and others felt that the evidence was just too compelling to ignore. The autopsy results confirmed that both Billie Jean and Billie had died from gunshot wounds, but the investigation was far from straightforward here. The search for a weapon, motives, and potential accomplices led investigators down various paths, and each one revealing more about the relationships and the conflicts within this tightly knit community. The presence of firearms in the home, coupled with testimonies from friends, painted a complex picture of the couple's lives, and it was one that included underlying tensions that may have contributed to their tragic end. As the case progressed through the legal system, the media coverage intensified. The public was captivated by the intertwining elements of love and conflict and betrayal, creating a sensational narrative that left many wondering about the nature of justice in this scenario. With the case drawing national attention, the courtroom became a battleground for contrasting narratives. The prosecution, they were out to portray Janelle as a vengeful figure who was consumed by jealousy and anger, while the defense aimed to frame her as an unfortunate participant in a tragic turn of events. With these facts established, it's crucial to consider the broader implications of this case. How do we assess accountability when actions online lead to something in the real world? What does it say about the influence of social media in our lives? As we continue, we're going to explore the differing perspectives of the prosecution and defense, examining the arguments that define this case and the key players involved. As we delve into the arguments surrounding the case of Billie Jean Hayworth and Billie Payne, it's essential to understand the perspectives of both sides, because each side presented a compelling narrative. Each one aimed to sway public opinion and establish their version of events. The prosecution argued that Janelle Porter was not just a participant, in an online feud. They painted her as a woman driven by jealousy and anger, and they highlighted her as aggressive. Her aggressive posts on social media, they escalated over time, and this showcased a pattern of threatening behavior, they said, directed toward Billie Jean and Billie. The prosecution claimed that these threats were indicative of a deeper-seated animosity, and that her actions were premeditated, culminating in the violent act of murder. Key witnesses testified about Porter's interactions with the couple, recounting instances where her anger seemed disproportionate to the situation, and they emphasized how her online persona had transformed into something far more sinister over time, suggesting that her digital disputes may have crossed a line into real-world hostility. In the prosecution, they sought to demonstrate that Porter's motivations were rooted in jealousy over perceived slights and disagreements, and this portrayed her, or they wanted to portray her, as a ticking time bomb that ultimately, in the end, exploded. And to strengthen their case, the prosecution presented forensic evidence linking Porter to the crime scene, and this included cell phone records showing her presence in the vicinity at the time of the murders, and messages that suggested she had been planning some kind of confrontation. The prosecution contended that these facts painted a clear picture of Porter's culpability, leading to a compelling argument for conviction. That's the one side. But on the other side, the defense argued that Janelle Porter was not guilty of murder, but rather a victim of circumstance caught in a tragic situation. And they focused on her claims of innocence, emphasizing that she had no motive to kill Billie Jean and Billie. They presented her as an individual whose online persona didn't reflect her true character. She was a woman who had gotten embroiled in a heated argument, but never intended for it to escalate into violence. The defense pointed to the lack of direct evidence that linked Porter to the actual shooting itself, and they argued that the prosecution relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and the sensationalism of social media narratives in order to build their case. The defense highlighted that while Janelle engaged in heated online exchanges, there was no definitive proof that she planned or executed the murders. They suggested that the true circumstances surrounding the deaths remained unclear, and that other individuals very well could have been responsible. Additionally, the defense aimed to humanize Porter, portraying her as someone who had faced her own struggles and frustrations in life. They argued that her online posts were a reaction to the conflict, but they were not an indication of her intent to harm. By focusing on her background and character, the defense sought to undermine the prosecution's narrative, emphasizing the complexities of human emotions and relationships that could lead to misunderstandings. The courtroom battles reflected the broader public sentiment as well, with many divided on their opinions of Janelle Porter. Some viewed her as a villain. She was driven to murder by jealousy, they would say, while others felt sympathy for the woman, saying she was caught in a tragic web of conflict. This case ignited discussions about the influence of social media on real-life interactions and the blurred lines between virtual disputes and actual violence. In the court of public opinion, the arguments from both sides resonated with different segments of society. The prosecution's portrayal of a dangerous online antagonist struck a chord with those who had witnessed the potential consequences of digital conflicts. Conversely, the defense's plea for understanding and context found an audience among those who recognized the complexities of human behavior and the challenges posed by social media. As we reflect on the tragic case of Billie Jean Hayworth and Billie Payne, it's essential to consider the psychological dynamics that are at play here and how easily someone can become ensnared in a conflict that spirals out of control. And it's important to touch on this before I leave you guys to try to make your own decision here. and commit to a side. This case illustrates how seemingly innocuous interaction on social media can quickly evolve into a public spectacle with real-life consequences. So imagine you have a person, they're in a great mood, it's a normal day, and they're casually scrolling through their social media feed. They come across a post or a comment that rubs them the wrong way. What might have been a passing irritation can suddenly ignite a firestorm of emotion, depending on anything that's going on in that person's life, any keywords used, any triggers that happened, anything at all. It's all too easy to engage in an argument online, especially when one feels a sense of anonymity or detachment. You can finally say what you have to say because you've always wanted to, and here you go. And this is where the path from a casual disagreement to a full-blown conflict begins, right in that moment. As the exchanges intensify, the individual may find themselves increasingly drawn into the drama, checking in, what's going on with this, soon becoming a main player in a narrative that was never theirs to begin with. So it started out as a minor disagreement, transforms into a heated feud. So now we have this going on, playing out publicly for all to see. The psychological allure of social media, a platform where validation and outrage can be just a click away. It compels individuals to participate with strangers, often escalating the conflict in ways they may not anticipate. And I say strangers, but even with people we know, we sometimes say things we might not say in person, right? Because it happens. And this case is a reminder of how one can become embroiled in turmoil, highlighting the simplicity of the transition from A to B, right? From a moment of discontent to a complete breakdown of communication that can lead to devastating outcomes. The digital environment fosters an atmosphere where emotions can run high and misunderstandings can spiral out of control. This scenario can happen to anyone. We've all experienced moments of frustration online or felt the urge to defend ourselves in the heat of an argument. Yet few of us, very few of us, stop to consider the potential ramifications of our words and actions in the moment. In the rush to engage, it's so easy to lose sight of the fact that what unfolds online can have profound impacts in the real world. So as we ponder these dynamics, it becomes clear that the psychological pathways leading to conflict are often rooted in emotional reactions that escalate quickly. And what happens on one day, right, might not happen the next day because of emotions. It's all sensitive and risky. The case of Billie Jean and Billie serves as a cautionary tale, prompting us to reflect on how we navigate our interactions in a digital age. It challenges us to think critically about the role of social media in shaping our behavior and the potential consequences of our engagements. Engagements, not just actions. Engagements, because somehow we don't see clicks and likes and words as actions sometimes. But they're there. They are, in a sense, actions. In this conflict with Janelle and Billie Jean and Billie, it escalated from personal agreements and public insults to a highly charged atmosphere filled with threats and accusations. Janelle's increasingly aggressive posts fueled tensions. Both sides became embroiled in a bitter exchange that drew in friends and family members, amplifying the hostility. And then on the night of June 1st in 2016, this situation reached its tragic climax. Billie Jean and Billie were found shot dead in their home in Oklahoma. The discovery of their bodies sent shockwaves through the community, prompting an immediate investigation. Law enforcement quickly identifies Janelle as a person of interest. Given her history of conflict with the couple, she was seen near the home. As the investigation unfolded, authorities collect the evidence. Throughout the trial, Janelle maintains her innocence. She insists she did not kill them. It was not her. As we conclude our exploration of this case of Billie Jean and Billie Payne, I invite you now to engage with the various perspectives we've discussed and reflect on how easily one can become embroiled in conflict through social media, where one moment of irritation can snowball into something tragic. What do you believe drove Janelle Porter to escalate her involvement in this online feud? Was she the catalyst for the evidence that ensued? Or was she simply swept along by circumstances beyond her control? Janelle faced accusations of murder, with prosecutors alleging that her online hostility and subsequent physical confrontations with the couple created an environment ripe for violence. The prosecution argued that her threats were not merely words, but a precursor to the deadly actions taken against Billie Jean and Billie. But on the other hand, the defense maintained that Janelle was not directly involved in these murders, that she had no motive to harm the couple. They suggested that while her online actions may have been heated, she did not intend for them to lead to violence. Ultimately, the jury had to weigh the evidence in the testimonies, leading to a verdict that reflected the complexities of the situation. Consider the arguments presented by both the prosecution and the defense. Did the prosecution demonstrate that Janelle's actions directly led to these deaths? Or did the defense successfully convey that she was an unfortunate participant in an evolving narrative? It's a hard decision. These things are not clear, and this tragic outcome is definitely a reminder of the real-world consequences that can arise from digital disputes. We know it can happen, but most of the time it's not hitting home to us. But as you ponder these questions, think about the broader implications for our society, because we're all in it. And could this be one of us? How do we navigate our online interactions responsibly? What lessons can we draw from this case to prevent tragedies like this? Ultimately, the question of whether justice was truly served in this case, it just remains complex, really, in the end. As we close, it's still a hard decision to make, and these cases are going to continue. Reflect on what you've heard. Consider the nuances involved. See if you can make a choice in cases like this. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the unsettling story of Billie Jean Hayworth and Billie Payne. More stories like this to come for sure. Until next time, stay safe out there, guys. And remember, think critically about the narratives we all engage in our lives. For True Crime, the Court of Public Opinion, and until next time, this is Alexis Knight.